Hello again, friends. Today we go back to the future of the 90s. It's Batman Beyond! While this is technically Batman Beyond, aka Terry McGinnis, it's not quite the Batman Beyond we all know and love from the cartoon, because goodness knows McFarlane's not going to make that. This is sort of the Batman Beyond from the Rebirth comics, but also sort of not, because just like how McFarlane likes to pick and choose his favorite characters, Batman, he also likes to choose his favorite bits of costume design to slap on a figure like he has here, so this is pretty much a mishmash of a figure, and let's just get into it. First thing I noticed with this guy out of the package is that he is strangely packaged wearing his claw hands instead of his normal hands. You'd think these would be the alternates, and I guess he is kind of drawn with claws out often in the Rebirth comics, but, it just looks wrong to me. So for the purposes of this review, we are going to switch them out right now for normal hands and just press on as if they were packed in there. One cool thing about this figure is that he is a Batman Beyond figure that actually includes the retractable wings Terry would use on the show. On a figure they're not retractable, of course, because, where the heck are these things going to go up inside your suit? But they're removable on a figure, or at least they should be. McFarlane's are not removable. Technically you could, but that'd be like a custom job, like removing an arm or something. You are totally not meant to remove these things. They are made of a softer plastic, though. I guess that's so they don't, snap in half, or maybe safety standards to not be too pointy at the end, but, I find it just makes them more prone to warpage. So what you do is attach the arms that have these little hook tabs on them through these holes in the wings here to sort of get that look. And it's kind of weird that Terry has like an extra tab on his gauntlet where the blades are, because it kind of just looks like another blade. You think they would just use the blades in the first place for this system, but, they didn't. Instead, it just looks like he's got an extra one when, they're not hooked into the wings themselves. Once you have them in, though, the wings just kind of move with the arm there. Unfortunately, they only really look good in a downwards position, because if you raise them up, they rise above where the tops of his arms are, which is, where they always follow, because they're attached to the bottom of the arm, and they just follow the arm movement in the animation and never pretty much come up here. So good luck recreating that awesome shot from the show's intro. And when they're not in use, they just kind of hang there, because we can't recreate the wingless look by having them be removable, because McFarlane probably wants to sell us another figure for that look down the line for whatever reason. His face has what I want to call tech lines on it, which definitely isn't accurate to the cartoon and doesn't seem to be accurate to the comics, from what I can tell. Whenever there are lines there, which are not shaped like these, they're red. So, that's wrong any way you slice it. He also has these big ovals where his ears should be. His human ears, not his pointy bat ears up there. They're not from the cartoon or the comics, and they look bad, so what the heck? It also has a lot more definition than we're used to seeing with Batman Beyond at the mouth and the nose, but going from a 2D drawing to a 3D sculpt like this, I think that's inevitable, so I'm going to let that slide. Still, the other choices on the head are, they're questionable at best. There's not really tech on his torso. Instead, he gets added muscle definition with the abs, which, is how it's often drawn in the comics, so that's fine at least. Not so fine are these giant strap-like things on the forearms. Well, once again, these aren't from the comics or the cartoon, so what the heck? This is just McFarlane adding his own embellishments because, I want my figures to look cool with extra detail and leather straps. But why would the advanced batsuit from the future have leather straps on it, McFarlane? He doesn't need straps for the boots, so, why does he need them for the forearm up there? Extra detail does not always look better. These, to me, clash with the rest of the design, and when you look at them, you kind of question how they even work, because the straps are running underneath the gauntlet blades. So, this just doesn't make sense. Moving down, the belt is in a V shape. That is from the Rebirth comics, but the rectangular pouches are kind of more like the animation. I guess it's not that big a change compared to what he did to the face and the forearms, so that's not too bad. Moving on, the legs are kind of plain, exactly how you'd expect them to be, except on the bottom of the feet, where McFarlane's added detail is actually a plus for once, because he has sculpted the rocket boot gadgetry down there, which, we never saw in the cartoon, but obviously it must have been there because somehow Terry, shoots the rockets on out. And they're unobtrusive enough that from the top, the feet still look like the simplistic design from the cartoon that I want. But still, what's on the bottom of the feet, that's added detail that I like. Everything else on the head and the gauntlets kind of sucks. Moving on to paint, Batman Beyond's got white eyes. They look good. Chest emblem is not painted. It's a separate molded piece. The diaper crotch piece here, whatever you want to call it, is molded in black. So the red and silver on the belt are just painted on top of that. And the red probably shouldn't be. I mean, I guess if it is based on the Rebirth Comics, you know, it should, but this is not the Rebirth Comics design from what I can tell, and come on! We all know Terry's bat suit just has silver belt pouches on top of a black bodysuit, which probably means the belt shouldn't be sculpted under those pouches in the first place. But just the same, I'd like it a more accurate look if they just kept it black with the only red being on the big center button like belt buckle thing there, like it was in the cartoon. And speaking of that belt buckle there, it looks like crap. It's like a big plastic novelty button from Staples. I guess that does look kind of more like the Rebirth Comics design for it than the cartoon design, but, you know, I'm still mad about it because the cartoon's design looked far more high-tech and way better in my opinion. I mean, can you tell that I don't like the Rebirth design here? Which this guy can't even be based on because, you know, when the Rebirth design does have a V-shaped belt, his eyes are red. And sometimes his boots, too. So McFarlane is just not giving us the figures we want because he'd rather go for weird comic looks, but when he does, figures aren't even accurate to that look. I mean, just bugs me because there are really only two paint apps here, the eyes and the belt, and I would have been happier if they had gone with less. Wings are also not painted black on the back like they should be. I mean, at least what little paint is there is clean on the eyes and the belt there, but they totally messed it up or cheaped out when it comes to accuracy to the source material, regardless of which source you're comparing it to. Articulation starts with a ball joint head, gets excellent attitude side to side, and it's pretty much as far as it can look up without popping the ball off the joint, which is disappointing because a flying figure should be able to look up McFarlane. Guess great range looking down though. Shoulders have the butterfly cups in there and they're on hinges. They can go above 90, that's very good. All the way around, of course, and they get some forward and back because of that butterfly cup in there. Bicep swivel, double elbows, and hinge and pivot wrists with the balls that can rotate one way, and then if you rotate it the other way, you can get the hand pretty much any position you want, but the balls are kind of big. Double ball joint in the torso, one at the diaphragm, one at the waist. Lets him get so far left and right, and pretty good forwards. Somewhat decent back, but like you're gonna kind of bend the wings doing that, so I wouldn't really recommend that. Can do the splits so far. Legs come that far forward. Similar with going backwards, like, yeah, you could do it, but you're gonna kind of kick those wings out of the way unless you're in a flying pose, right? Thighs swivel that much. They really need cuts at the thighs for swivels. I'll stop complaining about it when McFarlane stops omitting vital articulation. Got double knees, can kick his own wing or butt, whatever you want to say, back there. And then ball joints at the ankles. That's very good rocker motion. Like, wow, that's some excellent side to side, and you can, you know, finagle it to get the hinge going that way too, but you don't really need to. And then articulated toes. Very, very good articulation. Wish he looked up further. Wish he had thigh swivels. The wings, I guess, could be a point if you want to count them, but, you know, I don't. Packaging for this guy is nothing we haven't seen before. It says DC Multiverse and Batman Beyond right down there. Batman Beyond again on this side. Doesn't really say what the origin is. And it says Batman Beyond on that side too, only, you know, smaller. Strangely though, I will say on the back, we got a photo of the figure instead of comic book artwork. So, you know, don't really know what the source is, but I'm guessing it's comic books, or I'm guessing it's an original figure because here's just a photo of the figure. But even the original figures, like the Tom McFarlane designed Batman, had original artwork, so I mean, what the heck? I guess they couldn't get a picture of Batman Beyond from the TV show. Anyways, let's open this guy open. Get this guy open. I can't even speak. Oh, that's right. 3 pieces of tape because McFarlane. And it's only 1 piece of tape. I've complained about it enough. Whatever. I just forget every time because it doesn't make sense. Well, Terry pretty much just comes out of the box like so. He looks like he's got some sock tie thing around his thighs there. It's double thick, of course, and then there's one around each wrist gauntlet. Let's cut those guys open right now. Oh, and then his little wings are on the other side of the plastic, so they must be pulled through somehow. And let's see if we can accomplish that. Well, thankfully the wings are malleable enough that they came through that plastic tray, although I will say the plastic ties around the wrists, they are really deep in that tray, so they are pretty difficult to cut. I would package them slightly differently, but, you know, packaging same old, it's fine, I guess. Could save a little bit of space here and there, but it's serviceable. For accessories, first thing we got are the alternate hands, technically, that are meant for gripping his wings there, but I popped those on as his normal hands. So instead, I guess we're going to say he's got claw hands. Either way you want to slice it, he comes with an alternate pair of hands, which is a very nice thought. The hands just pop off and on to a little peg there. And when you're done with it, he's got claws! It works fine. Next we got a little collector card with a picture of the figure instead of a cartoon or comic, because they didn't quite base it on cartoon or comic, and so they don't want you to compare it to source material, I guess. And on the back we got a little write-up. You can pause and read if you like, but, you know, truthfully, this thing is kind of a throwaway accessory if you ask me. Along with this, which is not Terry's Batarang from the cartoon, and I don't care if it shows up in the comics, because everyone wants the one from the cartoon, and McFarlane even made the one from the cartoon, but you gotta buy a whole nother figure to get that Batarang. At least he holds it, I guess. Next, we got this stand for flying figures. It can kind of hold Terry at the waist. The arm is bent on mine. Yay! Now, an issue with this flying stand here is that since it's really only meant to grip Terry around the waist, certain poses with the wings make that very, very difficult. You don't want to warp those wings because you're going to have to kind of bend them and shove this thing back there. I mean, it can be done, but like if the wings are fully down and sort of closed, like this thing is not going to, well, it's really going to bulge out and like, yeah, give it like a sort of tent effect there. So really works with them slightly spread like that. But then if you have him at the waist, like you're supposed to, he just kind of hovers there and it's often crooked. Because, you know, the armature is bent on my little stand here. But if you want him to look like he's flying forward, this thing has to go in between his legs, and then Terry can't quite look up. So maybe you want some kind of angle, but then it's still like in between the legs. I guess it doesn't look so bad from the front, but it's still sort of a imperfect kind of thing going on, given Terry's design and all that. Well, at least you can always rip that off and stand him on the peg on the base, and then bada boom. He's standing on a base. Now, the star of the show when it comes to the accessories are these. Rocket effects for Terry's feet. They are translucent. They are beautiful. They go from yellow to red in such subtle ways. They have a peg right here that goes into his ankle hole thing. And then the other booster effect has a flattened top so that it aligns perfectly with that little sculpted rocket hole on his feet. And they just look amazing. They really look like they're coming on out of there. That is like how effects parts should be done. All right, McFarlane. My only issue with them isn't really an issue with the rockets themselves. It's that the stand is just not tall enough because, like, when he's got those rockets on, they're touching the bottom of the base there. So it's not like he's really flying or floating or anything at all. Still, the effects themselves look spectacular. Like, this is almost worth it for these things alone. This is an amazing thing to add to the set. Scale time, Terry stands at about 7 1/4 inches or 18.5 centimeters tall to the top of his ears there. As always, here he is with 6-inch Batman and Spider-Man. But being a 7-inch figure, let's compare him to some of those. Here he is with Rambo, Commando, Robocop, the Terminator, Alien, and Predator. Then with another future Batman, the McFarlane Dark Knight Returns Batman, who Terry is surprisingly a little bit taller than. I don't think I like how that scales out, McFarlane. 3 Jokers Batman and Arkham Asylum Batman scale a bit better, because at least they're a tiny bit taller than Terry, and he is supposed to be Terry here, according to that, you know, collector card and everything, so, you know, he's a teenager. That's not Bruce Wayne in that high-tech batsuit. He should be a little bit shorter than these guys. Probably, like, that much shorter than, you know, compared to the Hellbat suit, because, like, Terry's tall for a teenager, but, like, should be shorter than Bruce Wayne, I feel. This Terry's probably, like, a little too tall to fit in with the standard Batmans, but, you know, it's not that far off, I guess. Now, do I ultimately recommend this Batman Beyond figure from McFarlane, friends? Well, sorta. Like, if you like what you see here, then yes. But otherwise, like, when you start looking at the sculpt, like, I mean, although he does generally look like how you remember Batman Beyond looking, when you start to look at the details, like with the gauntlets and the paint deco on that belt and stuff, you know, he's not really quite there for me. Like, if you're a fan of Terry from the comics or the cartoon, he ain't accurate to either of those. Articulation's exactly what you'd expect from McFarlane, but I mean, in terms of accuracy of source material, like, I mean, it just gets straight up insulting when you start to get this thing with the Batarang situation going on there. I mean, the claw hands are like a nice inclusion, but really, what this guy's meant to do is be in a pose like this on that flight stand. And the fact that the wings are engineered so that, they rise above the arms when you move them up means they only really look good in sort of a down position. But not too far down, because then they'll interfere with that bulge on the back of the flight stand there. So he's very, very limited in what he can do. The rocket effects look amazing. That is what this set is all about. He can get in a cool rocket-propelled flight pose at certain angles on that stand. But he can't go straight vertical because, one, it's not very dynamic, and two, he don't really fit there with the rockets. I mean, he barely fits there. And then you can't go straight horizontal because he don't look up. So if you like what you see here, this kind of flight pose, then get him. But otherwise, I'd kind of steer clear. However, this flight pose, it is pretty awesome. So get it if you like that. And until next time, peace out, YouTube.